Now, I said to Nick that we would take the layer 2 one first, but could you just give us an update, Sean, on where the contract upgrades are with the pre-protocol, pre-launch protocol?
Yep. They've added the creator addresses to the UMIPs, so I think that's pretty much it, other than like a final verification of the code matches what's expected in the actual deployed contracts. But good to go.
So we'll go with that one. Excellent. We've got 3 UMIPs up for consideration. We have one which is to set up mainnet cross-chain Oracle bridge, and then one to add open as a collateral type, and the other to add a USD identifier for open. We'll start with the mainnet cross-chain Oracle bridge. Nick, would you like to speak to that? Will I bring it up on screen?
Yeah, I can speak about it, but I realized that if there are only 2 UMIPs, really, like 2 of them are related to open, maybe we just talk about that one. Probably more straightforward than the LT one. Logan, if you're open to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to do this in any order, and yeah, that's fine.
Go for it.
Okay, where to start? So this is actually not the first time that I have submitted these. This is the second time I went ahead. I had a sort of personal issue. I had to take a few weeks off, so I thank you guys for being flexible on this. I went ahead and resubmitted these and addressed a couple points that were, I guess, fairly major in my original renditions of these, namely being the open tokens being not locked by the team and there being a security issue, potential security issue around that. That has been ameliorated. The tokens are locked now. Trying to think what the other issue was. I know that Britt mentioned that there was kind of a weird issue not having liquidation bots, and that is something, you know, that I should know more about, but I do not. I know maybe Clayton would be able to chime in here and give us some insight. Maybe. I know he knows what we're trying to do. So, thank you, Larry.
What do you mean not having liquidation bots?
So it was my understanding, and this is talking to my team and the devs and everything, that for the options, like call options, like we wouldn't need liquidation bots the way this works, the way our team is going to set this up.
Yeah. So for call options, because they're not really liquidatable before, they're not liquidatable. You just need to be able to get a settlement price. So you only ever make one price request, essentially. So like, you don't really need liquidation bots. It's best to have what's known as a proposer bot to actually propose that settlement price, which kind of works in the same way as liquidation dispute bots. And I don't like, but the nice thing is as you've defined the OpenUSD and USDOPEN price identifiers, like it works with any of those out of the box.
Do I need to include that detail?
No, I don't. Okay. I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I think that's a product specific type thing. Okay. Yeah.
Excellent. Trying to think of if there were any other major roadblocks in there. I know there was a slight issue with my format that I should have fixed up that Britt mentioned, and I totally spaced it until this morning. But I think all the information's there.
One question I had was just about like the depth of the market, and I'm not sure. I defer to like Sean or whatever on this, but I guess if we're doing call options, I guess that doesn't matter so much. Is that right? Like we don't need to worry about the size of the market.
Yeah, I mean, I think the guiding rule is that we just need to have some assurance that like the collateral type is worth something and could be used to like could be used by the store for like token buybacks eventually. So I think that's like the main blocker for things, and like other things like depth of liquidity for, I don't know, for making it a fun experience to run liquidation bots and stuff like that is something that should be taken into account before like actually launching contracts. It's my opinion, and I think generally what we've gone with. And like the liquidity is not terrible, right? Like I think there's like 700K in one of the pools and like 600 in the other or something like that, Logan.
That sounds about right on any given day. I mean, has it been better? Yeah. Yeah, but is it
2
going to
weeks, yeah.
implode? No. So
Okay.
that's my stance on it. Should be, but that's about right.
I don't know, John, Vari, Reynes, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think since these aren't going to be used for liquidatable contracts, I think liquidity is plenty. And if we wound up in a situation where there was a bunch of big positions in liquidatable contracts, then we can deal with that like as it comes up. But it's not really an immediate issue since it's call options. So.
Okay.
The only
Sorry,
thing
sorry.
Caveat in the security considerations, just to make people aware of that in case they want to create something, not realizing there's a liquidity issue. Other than that, looks good.
Yep. And it also depends like how much is locked in there. Like if you're going to create like huge positions, that's different than if you just had like, you know, kind of a small liquidatable kind of thing. Like 100K in there spread across like a bunch of positions is probably not a big deal.
Okay. But if that number starts to get a bit more astronomical, then maybe we need to cross this bridge again. And I can include a note about that in the security section.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, but overall I thought that like the price identifier looked really good, and like there weren't a lot of comments on it, which I'm assuming is like more evidence of like the early reviewer process working well, and also Logan, just your talent in writing UMIPs, rather than, you know, people not actually reviewing this. But like when I reviewed it, I basically had nothing to add or correct other than some formatting issues.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, big thank you to the early stage reviewers there. So we're both good to go with both of the collateral and the open identifier.
If
I think so, yeah.
is feeling hunky dory on it, I'm happy to move this one forward.
Was it it was the, oh no, that's the wrong one. It was this one that had minor formatting changes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
Not something that would ever be a blocker. It's just makes it more readable.
Yeah.
okay.
Cool. Okay. The next one is looking at the mainnet cross-chain Oracle bridge. There was quite a bit of discussion around this one, and I know Nick wanted to speak to it. So, Nick, would you like to introduce it?
Yep. Yeah, thanks everyone for the reviews so far. So the context here is we want a way for any L2 network to be able to receive price requests or receive price resolutions from mainnet, and also send price requests to mainnet. And the goal is we would deploy an optimistic oracle to each L2. And so contracts on that L2 would make normal price requests to the optimistic oracle. maybe like 5% of them we'd expect would actually get escalated. But if they were to get escalated, they should trustlessly be able to bridge to L1. The main challenge here is that bridging part. That bridging part in the proposal I made and that we've been working on is a very centralized solution. It relies on a cohort of relayers initially going to be run by Risk Labs to bridge price requests. But the main risks here are like that relayer itself can actually modify the price requests on the way. So Risk Labs has no incentive to do that, but it's a real attack surface. So Rainus pointed this out, and it was really good to get that feedback that we should explain more our path to decentralization. So one thing I should have made more clear in the UMIP is that this is very much a proof of concept, and it was meant to be a temporary stopgap solution until say Polygon deployed their own arbitrary message bridge, and we would use that. So then our risk, if we use Polygon's own bridge, would be no greater than the risk that anyone who uses Polygon takes on. So we're not adding additional attack surface to that. So at the time of first working on these contracts, around end of April, Polygon did not have an arbitrary message bridge, but they said they were working on one in the future. Unbeknownst to us, on May 6th, they actually updated their docs and deployed their own arbitrary message bridge. And we didn't realize this. And we were already working on the contracts. We were getting them audited. And we finished the contracts a couple of weeks ago and have been spending a lot of time on making sure that the off-chain bot infrastructure was very robust. So this was news to us, and Rainus's comments led me to go back to the docs and realize that they actually have an arbitrary message bridge. So what I recommend is to basically pull this UMIP, not vote on it, not set up the temporary solution, and just immediately start working on integrating the Polygon arbitrary message bridge. It probably will take 1 to 2 weeks, but the upside is we don't have to run any bots, we don't have to maintain any bots, and it's going to be trustless out of the box. Curious what people think about that.
What would, like, say we did deploy this POC solution, and then we eventually like migrated to the Polygon AMB, what would like the upgradability like process look like? Like, would contracts would like we need to deploy like a new optimistic oracle? Would contracts that were already deployed using like the POC be able to like shift over to using the Polygon one?
Yeah, we wouldn't deploy any new optimistic oracle on Polygon. Also, for what it's worth, deploying contracts on Polygon, like I deployed our whole set of contracts for like less than a cent. So that's not really a major concern there. But we wouldn't deploy a new optimistic oracle. What you would do is on L2, there's still an oracle contract on L2, but it's not the DVM. What it is, it's this beacon oracle that sends message that allows us to grab messages and bridge them back to L1. So what we would do is we would make the finder on L2 just point to this new oracle that works with the Polygon message bridge. And on L1, we'd revoke the beacon oracle on L1's ability to make price requests, and we deploy a new one.
Okay, but so basically all the live contracts would be able to use any new mechanism introduced, right?
Yep. It's pretty easy to upgrade. So right now on Polygon, you can actually connect to the optimistic oracle. We have an EMP factory on there. You can do everything right now. The only difficulty is if L2 wants to make a price request to L1, you'd go through our trusted relayer. So from the calling contract's point of view, I guess they don't really know if it's our automatic relayer sending price requests or if we as a team are manually pushing prices. I guess the security concerns are the same for them. So what we might do as a stopgap is just don't run an automatic bot. Like, don't set up a whole robust bot system. Just if anyone decides in the next couple of weeks, if someone wants to actually use Polygon, we can support that, and we'll know when they make a price request to the DVM, and then we can manually bridge it over. So I just don't want us to take on too much work with setting up and maintaining a bot system that is going to be gone in a couple of weeks.
So if we can do that, are there any real downsides to approving this POC implementation while the Polygon A and B integrations worked on?
It just doesn't. It doesn't add anything, I guess, to approve this on L1. It's on L. If we approve this UMIP, there'll be a beacon contract on L1 that can make price requests to the DVM. This beacon contract can only be called by our relayer. So the way the relayer works is it sees that there was a price request on L2, and then it takes the metadata and copies it over directly to L1 and makes the price request. Then it sees that the price was resolved in L1 and it shuffles the data back to L2. But L2 doesn't really know where L1 is. It has no like concept of what L1 is. So what we could do is we could just directly respond to the L1's price request manually. It's not, I guess it's not any riskier. It's the same entity that's resolving the price. We have the same incentives to get the price correct, but we don't have to set up the bot. And we don't have to pass this UMIP and then revoke it later. And also it probably, like that whole system will go away soon. I also don't know of any teams that are planning to use the L2 proof of concept yet.
What about like other layer 2 solutions like Arbitrum or Optimism? Would they require completely like different setup and mechanism?
Mm-hmm. So they would use a system much like the contracts we would have to write for Polygon's arbitrary message bridge, which is a really good thing. So the new contracts we would write will be much more flexible and hopefully will work with like Arbitrum and Optimism, because most of these message bridges are very general and they just allow you to pass arbitrary bytes as data. But with our solution was, since we didn't know that Polygon actually had their own bridge, we actually had to find a bridge made by Chainbridge, deployed on L2, deployed on L1, and figure out how to bridge them. But now all that is abstracted away from us. We don't have to worry about it. So we're just going to write a contract that can send messages back and forth, and that should scale well to the other L2s.
Cool. I had a related question for the how convenient for voter DApp is it like to grab all the data and identify who's requester and which chain is requesting, because I realized that at least current contract doesn't log this ancillary data itself. It's logged by optimistic Oracle, not the voting contract. How do you view that in the future?
Yeah, that's definitely a separate but related topic, and I think that if we were to write the contracts again, we would just include more data. But that's what we'll get a chance to do. And I think with this, with the messages that we're going to pass back and forth, we'll not only include timestamp, identifier, ancillary data, but also like requesting address, the chain ID where it's coming from.
Yeah, potentially also fee amounts or
Yep.
something like that.
Yep, fee amounts. Yep.
And I guess for other projects that would want to do something similar, if they don't have some equivalent to the arbitrary message bridge, would we just say until that exists, we're not going to deal with this because of the centralization risk, plus you have a bunch of overhead managing
Yes.
it?
Yep. So that's what we were thinking too. We were thinking the chain bridge solution we could use for any network that doesn't have an arbitrary message bridge, but it seems like most of the legitimate ones do, or deploy one right away. So we should just wait in the future and just not worry about the headache of having to bridge back and forth and how to get decentralized.
BSC doesn't, right?
BSC doesn't. I think we can get away with not being on BSC though. I think Arbitrum and Optimism and Polygon are more important.
So we do actually have a few teams that are keen to use our L2 solution at the moment. We've kind of been holding off because it's, deciding what the next steps are. Not that what other teams want to do should decide whether we're ready for this or not. So I just kind of want to make sure that point is like well known. But if I had to kind of interject and say, if we can do a manual bridge and teams are testing out to get familiar with how deploying our contract on L2 would work, and the process would roughly take around 2 weeks, and we have like this, manual but janky solution, I actually am okay with the idea of pushing it as well.
Yeah, I think we can definitely support manual. Like you can connect to the optimistic Oracle on L2 right now. And then if we see a price request, we'll just manually resolve it. Or what we could do is if there's a legitimate price request with real value at risk, we can manually make that price request on L1, then have voters resolve that, and then publish that exact vote down to L2.
Yeah, and I also think that within the space of 2 weeks, not many people will launch synths with high value. And so I think the risk of the risk of putting this up in place and then having to actually maintain it might be just overkill, and then it just it might be better just to engineer it properly from the beginning, because I also don't see us having to deploy some relayer being too much of a blocker, right? Like maybe one team will test it during their testing phase, and that kind of is okay. At least that's the way I think about it. Would love to know if anyone else has any other thoughts.
If we get other teams that express interest in using L2, should we be encouraging them to test it out, or should we be just telling them wait until we have the Polygon bridge?
I would say see if they can wait, and if they can't, they should be able to test it out.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, I also think like so we're still doing like a little bit of R&D on the Polygon solution, and if it turns out that it doesn't actually work well, or if the timeline is much longer and the team wants to launch before then, we could revisit this UMIP and like basically set up the bridge, and then we can support it pretty easily because all the contracts are deployed and the bot should be ready. We just don't know if we want to turn it on.
Sean, Nick, I think it's really easy for us to manage expectations with other teams to not have that be the case. And I would at least push for us not to encourage other teams to deploy like a fully fledged product. And kind of given that it's the beginning of the month, most of the contracts that we know of either have been deployed or about to be deployed. I don't suspect we're going to have a few mid-month launches either way. So actually, if we have to look at it realistically, we actually have a month to get this sorted, and we could easily have early July launches on the new L2 with the more robust bridge.
Yep.
And at least if a team wants to play around, like just because it's really easy and cheap to deploy something, they can just like deploy a dummy contract, see how it works, test it internally, maybe do one message bridge to see if it works. We do the manual like transfer over, but this is all like internal team testing. I'm okay with that solution, but I totally agree with Vari that we shouldn't encourage this until we're confident that it works 100%.
Cool. So
and then also just a point to make clear, like Rainus, like honestly 100 points for picking that up. It's really great to have like someone who had noticed that and kind of mentioned it in the comments.
Yeah, I'm really glad you caught this before we approved it and then realized that there was a better solution.
And I think that this lines up pretty well with the Hack Money hackathon that's coming up, where people can experiment with that, even if because you wouldn't be deploying until towards the end of the hackathon, but you could start building on it. And I also think it's it's a lot simpler not passing this through and then having like this other thing that people could theoretically use, and then you're trying to document that and guide people through using that. And, you know, God help us if somebody does, because now we have to keep some parallel set of like weird docs up to date for this thing. So I'm definitely feeling that it's a good idea to just wait a couple weeks till we have one that we like better.
Yep.
Well, like you shouldn't actually know what's bridging it behind the scenes, right? If you're just like a contract deployer.
Yeah, exactly. Like you should still be able to deploy on Polygon. Just know that, I guess the main thing to signal is that the price that's coming back is not trustlessly from the DVM. It's some person has some ability to modify that price. So basically you should not be securing real value with this.
Cool.
So is the upshot then that this UMIP is withdrawn for now, but on the back burner just in case there's a problem with the Matic bridge?
Yeah, let's just close it though, because the language will probably be very different in the Matic bridge. And then if we need to come back to this, I'll just copy it and respond to all the comments.
Okay, so I'll just put it in as withdrawn for now.
Cool.
Yeah, much propos to
Thanks.
Renus for finding it.
Yeah, thanks everyone for the feedback.
I'm excited we're getting to L2.
And just as gas prices go down as well. I did a transaction at 19 GUI, which is amazing.
GUI.
Mm.
I don't know how to actually say that. I've always said GUI.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've heard it so many different ways. GUI's probably my favorite one of our.
GUIs. I like it actually.
Any other issues anybody would like to discuss in the call? No. Just to say that I think the early review team has been going really well, and I just encourage people to take a look at the work that's being done at the minute with the omnibus ones. There was an omnibus in for today, but it actually got pulled just to have another look at some of the collateral types that we're going to use for KPI options. So the early review team are working on that so that we'll have something pretty good by the time it comes to formal review and to the community call. Excellent. Well, it was nice to see you all again.
Thanks, Vari. Thank you, everyone,
Good to
for
see ya.
coming
Thanks,
and
guys.
all your feedback and everything. Much appreciated.
Good to have you back, Logan.
Woo! It's good to be back, baby.
See y'all.
So, yes.
Bye.
See you
All
guys.
right. See you.